So for this tutorial, it's going to be on high idle, no handers. Some people, the real way I maybe to do them is in like second gear where you drop it back, take your hands off, whatever. I like doing them in first gear with the high idle, see how slow, see how far I can go. I set my idle to about 6K, and you're going to need an idle adjuster for this. It's the cable that you see down there. I've made a video on how to install that, so you can go find that. One note, Jason Britton talks about this, save transmissions. Don't crank the idle and then slam it into gear. Start the bike, put it in first gear, hold the clutch and raise the idle to wherever you want it, and then kind of do your wheelies. And then to shut it down, or to lower it, you know, pull the clutch in, lower it while it's still in first gear. Don't put it back up into neutral. You never want to go from neutral, slam it into first gear when it's super high. So you could shut the bike off, lower it, and then turn it back on in neutral, whatever you want. So that's how you set that up. The first step you're going to do is just clutch up like a normal sit down. It's going to come up a little bit quicker since you're already high in the RPMs. Hook your foot and just kind of find where that idle is. Roll off the throttle, kind of get it to balance point, and roll off the throttle. You don't have to take your hand off yet, but just close the throttle. See how I'm not on it? You can see where that idle is kind of carrying it. That's what you want to do first. Just kind of like get comfortable with where that is, where the bike's going to be, so you kind of know where it kind of catches the idle. And once you get that, you're going to repeat that, but try and keep the throttle hand off for, you know, longer and longer. Start short and work your way up, as opposed to just going no hands completely, because I did that in the beginning and it was just a lot of frustrating lot sessions. I didn't really get anywhere. I started just with the one hand, and that kind of, I was able to figure out how that balances, and then you can eventually just let go of that other handlebar. So find where the idle is, roll off, take this throttle hand off, shorter distance in the beginning, increase as you go, and then, you know, it's like the same process for like a one-hander. You hook your foot under the peg, drop it back, find that idle, boom, this hand's off, right? Now you can take both. And what you want to do is use as little brake as possible and lean in, because the brake really isn't your friend on these Groms right now, because it's just going to kill the idle. There's not a lot of pull. So I'm barely touching the brake like that. It's also a good idea to not use so much brake, because if you stall or you slam like mousetrap and your wheels turn, you're probably going to front flip over the bars. It's going to be a bad time. So once you get comfortable with just the, you know, longer distance with the throttle hand off, you still have your foot hooked, you're leaning into the bike. It's kind of like a coaster, how you lean in, chest closer to the bars. It gives you, you can kind of balance with your body a little more. I don't know, I find it a little easier to control when I'm tucked in a little bit that way. Then, like I did there, you can just let go, and then the bars will turn. And usually you might, you know, drop it like I did there, or, you know, you can clutch up. You want to clutch up faster to balance point than I just did right there. But if you're good with one-handers, and you should be before trying this, you know, to take the one hand off already, turn the bars, then find your idle, and then just take your hands off. And, you know, if it's going to drop down, you can kind of feel it. It's going to falling out of the idle. That's all, another reason why you don't want to go heavy on the brake, because it'll give you time to grab the bars, straighten them out, and, you know, prevent yourself from crashing, I guess, that way, front flipping or whatever. That's why I also recommend don't go straight to no handers right away. Just take the throttle hand off, because that way you can kind of get a feel for how the bike feels and like how much brake input you need, and that way you could still kind of control how the bars, how the, you know, wheel's gonna land when you have to drop it or you panic or whatever. So all about preventing as many like unnecessary crashes as possible. It's inevitable, but there's a lot you can prevent, a lot that I see you can prevent. So I mean, clutch up fast like that. I mean, could be a little faster, but hook the foot, lean in, find your idle, take the hands off, and then if it's gonna drop, grab it and add a little bit of gas because you don't want to come too heavy down. So up, turn, lock foot, lean, hands off. And like even there, I don't think I was touching the brake, but just these Groms don't have a lot of idle pull compared to the big bikes. So it's, I mean, you're kind of, that's why it's easier in second gear. You get a little more speed. The engine brake doesn't really slow you down as much, but yeah, I mean, it's not really much to it. Just like if you prep the way I told you, once you get into it, you know, you lock your foot under the peg, you lean into the bars, you find that idle pull before you kind of take both hands off. And then when you take your hands off, you know, you got to use your core to stable, squeeze your knees if you need to. You know, don't use a lot of brake. You just really want the bike to pull you. You're not gonna fall back. So that's pretty much it. You can get, you know, once you get really good at those going for longer distances, you can kind of, you know, add some style to it. It's definitely hard in first gear on the Grom, so it's hard to go slow for a super long period. See, like right there, I'm starting to fall down, so like that's one of the scenarios where you want to be careful, because I used a lot of brake there and had to grab the bars real quick. So another quick example of, I guess, what you want to avoid right there. And once you start adding stuff, it makes it a little more difficult to focus. That's why you got to establish that foundation, because once you're really good with that, then you can start adding things in and it shouldn't be too big of an issue. So that's kind of how you do some high idle no-handers. I think it's pretty simple, or they're pretty fun. I don't know if it's simple, it might take a while to get used to, but once you kind of get them, they're really fun to mess around with, and if you like doing some of that slower stuff. Quick up, lock, lean. I'm gonna try and stay in this lane here. Find that idle, let it come back. You got the no hands going, and you could grab it again, keep going. That's all I got. I haven't been done these in a while too, so they're a little rough. So that's pretty much the gist of that, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hottest stash in the carpet. Yeah, we trapping out apartments. I ain't done when you start shit. To be honest,